WICR.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back. Final team of the day for our 2016-2017 NBA season preview. Matt Lasella, Martino Puccio here with you. Okay, Denver Nuggets, final team of the day. Last year they went 33-49. They missed the playoffs again. Transition year, really, they're in rebuilding mode. Jamal Murray, draft pick they had. Another nice draft pick. I think that was another good player that actually fell to them, similar to Emmanuel Mudiay, which I thought was a steal when they got him, who showed really good flashes last year. They lost DJ Augustine and Wilson Chandler, but Jameer Nelson is backing up Emmanuel Mudiay, which is a solid backup for them. Gary Harris tore a muscle in one of his legs. I don't have that on me, but he's going to be out for a while. So Will Barton fills in for him there, and then Jamal Murray will back him up. Danilo Gallinari's back at the small forward position. The Manimal Kenneth Faried at the 4, and then Josef Nurkic at the 5 for them. Talented lineup, in my opinion.
Talented lineup, and we've talked about benches, or at least I've talked about benches so far, and I think they have one of the better benches, actually.
Yeah, that's your recurring theme, yeah.
Because the starting lineup is solid. It's not incredible, but I think, losing Gary Harris is tough. Coming off a nice year, you expected some improvements. I think Nikola Jokic, obviously similar to Jokic,
really improved.
Very solid. I think Jamal Murray is going to be a star in this league. I think he's in a good place to start. I think Denver's just way to up tempo. Just kind of air it out, shoot.
Moody is very, very good.
And Moody is very good. Moody is better now, I think, than people thought he was going to be already.
He played awesome towards the end of the season last year. I had him on fantasy, and he was really putting up some good number of games.
Showed some real leadership skills. Darrell Arthur's a solid piece that comes off the bench, just kind of one of those work ethic guys. Mike Miller, a good veteran to have because you got a lot of young guys.
That was a solid pickup. That's a good shooter to have.
Yeah, I think something to look out for is definitely Kenneth Faried, because Faried kind of set a bar, and then the last few years he hasn't really.
Yeah, they were talking about him as a possible trade chip. I've heard and read some things about him possibly maybe even losing his starting job.
Right.
I think, to be honest, if I was them, I think he's called the Manimal, and he brings so much energy. I think he's just a bench.
He's not a numbers guy.
Yeah, bring him up to but he can.
But when you have him at like 14 and 7.5, you expect that. It kind of dropped 6.5 last year, whatever it was, and it's not much. He really doesn't bring anything.
He's been declining, but I think it really comes down to health, and Denver's had problems with health. I mean, Danilo Gallinari, that was a bad injury. Wilson Chandler was always hurt. He was always hurt.
Wilson Chandler has still that guy that they just hoped. I mean, 29 now, that's kind of out of the question, but just hoped because he had all the tools.
But Will Barton, another one of those guys that was one of the most improved players in the NBA last year, really shined and did a nice job, and now he has an opportunity to prove to not only himself but the rest of the Nuggets brass that he is here to stay, and he could potentially be a starting guard in their league, which might make them rethink their whole lineup or their whole roster. So I think this team is going to be a hit or miss. I think this is the first hit or miss team, besides Chicago we were talking about, that is either I think they're going to have a season like they did last year, or they might win 40 games, 42 games, might go 500. I think their ceiling is 500.
Yeah, I agree. Maybe
it's not a crazy improvement.
No, it's not.
9 wins, 7 wins.
Playing in the West, and it's hard to expect much more.
I think the West overall has declined, and Utah's
has declined, but the top is so good.
Utah, excuse me. Utah's going to have some problem with Gordon Hayward out for a little bit. You really don't know how Dante Exum's going to hold up. But they do have George Hill. They do have other good pieces, but
I think saying, the ceiling would be 500 for the Nuggets is probably accurate. They're not a playoff team, not yet at least, still a couple years away.
I personally, I think that's their ceiling. I think they're going to get maybe 5-6 more wins. They might get to 40 wins. That's more realistic. What I see with them, I don't see them losing more than less than. I don't see them winning less than 33 games.
They're not going to be over 500.
I
don't put them over 500.
No, I think the Gary Harris injury was too.
Yeah, and I think injuries. Obviously, we always say, okay, injury here or there. You can't predict, but I think injuries have been so much of a problem for them. You can almost expect and guarantee that's going to happen, and which is unfortunate, especially before the year even starts. But probably around 500, hanging around there.
Yeah.
Play competitive throughout the year.
It depends on how the Jazz play without Gordon Hayward. Really depends on how the Minnesota Timberwolves also fare.
It really depends how the Thunder play. There's a lot of question marks in their division.
I think they'll be fine. I think the Thunder are making the playoffs.
Well, yeah, I agree, but
but that's another topic for when we get to those teams. So I mean, those are the Denver Nuggets. Honestly, a very interesting team. I think it really hinders on Gallinari's health and how well Emmanuel Mudiay will play, and especially
how well these two young big men, the two foreigners, develop. I
also think. and also Jamal Murray. As I know he's not starting or anything, but he was the top 10 pick. Top 10 picks, I think they have to produce. Especially there was a good amount of hype around him. There was even rumors that he was going to go to Boston at 3. So I mean,
you have to produce. You're not playing in the background your rookie year if you're a top 10 pick. You're playing.
Yeah, you got to be playing unless you're injured. There's no excuses.
Substantial minutes.
Yep.
So.
All right, so that'll wrap it up for this week's segment. We got through a good amount of teams. We're gonna be. I think we could still technically do it next week because the games don't start until nighttime. We could release other previews for teams, but we're probably gonna try and do it later in the week. See what we can do and get those out if we can. But I will be re-uploading these videos with video captions and pictures, so probably when you are listening and watching, it'll have up all the graphics and make it easier visual on you to know who we are talking about and what it's going to be like for the videos.
And you don't have to see our faces.
Yeah, because I think it's annoying to just watch this angle. It's a terrible camera angle. They never
strange.
They never see my
staring
face
right into it, but I'm not really looking into it.
I'm
kind of hidden behind these lights.
They barely see you. I mean, the lighting is just weird.
Yeah.
But anyways, nonetheless, that was a good show today. We'll be back next week for sure. Very excited to finish out the rest of these teams and see what else what else the season is going to be like, because I do think it's going to be a very exciting season despite the fact that everyone knows
who
the two final
Cleveland.
teams. Yeah.
I think everything leading up to that is where the excitement comes from.